Welcome to the Bojack Podcast Horseman Obviously. This is episode number 12. My name is Dominic and I'm joined by Matthew.
Hello.
The aim of this podcast is for me to convince Matthew that Bojack Horseman is the greatest animated TV show of all time. And in this episode, we will be discussing Series 1, Episode 12, later. Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Great. Yeah, really good thinking.
The autumn's here now, the leaves are falling.
Yeah. I always get a bit of seasonal affective disorder. Well, at the end of summer. And a few weeks ago, I felt awful. Went through a really down patch. But yeah, now I'm fully embracing the autumn spirit and Halloween's around the corner.
So yeah, this is episode number 12. What happens in this episode? Give us a brief summary.
I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure. Well, I'll start at the end.
Okay.
I got to the end of this episode and I was like, is that it?
Anticlimax.
Yeah, especially with it being the season finale. Normally you expect a season finale to have like a bit of a bang or something.
Okay.
But
maybe like the last episode. Like
yeah.
Episode 11.
Episode 11 felt more like a season finale than
Yes.
this did. A lot of this episode is based around Secretariat, a horse, seems to be a racing horse from the 70s, who apparently was very culturally influential in his time and seems to be a bit of a hero of Bojack. And a lot of the themes of the show, this episode, centre around Secretariat and Bojack's relationship to him. We get a flashback about Secretariat and then it cuts to an award show where Bojack is getting an award for a movie that isn't actually a movie, which made no sense to me at all. Yeah. He gets an award, which he proceeds to carry around with him in every scene for the rest of the show. Vincent Adultman makes another appearance in this quite a lot, quite heavily in this. Bojack tries to make a movie about Secretariat. Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter continue their blossoming relationship and come up with some even more harebrained schemes. And then Diane's been offered a bunch of different jobs, but ends up taking a job working on the Secretariat movie, which means that Bojack and Diane are going to be working together again. It was difficult to summarise this episode because there isn't really one train throughout the episode.
No.
Loads of stuff going on.
There's quite a bit of this episode that reminds me of the first episode, which seems like even longer ago, so you might not even remember that.
How so?
Well, first of all, the very start is a chat show.
Yeah.
So the first start of the first episode starts with Bojack being interviewed on the chat show.
Yeah.
But also in terms of how I feel like it's actually quite scene setting, maybe for the next season.
If it's very similar to the first episode, do you think that's intentional mirroring on behalf of the
I think there's parts of it, yeah.
creators?
I think there's a few literal lines as well, particularly at the end, that are from the first episode.
Speaking of which, there are a couple of themes in this that really resonated with me, and stuff that I've been thinking about and playing with a lot recently.
So this episode is directed by Martin Sandretta and it's written by Raphael Bob Waxberg. It starts with a flashback to 1973 and we're on a show called The Dick Cravett Show, where he's interviewing a horse called Secretariat, who we find, I think we're aware of Secretariat anyway, aren't we? It's been mentioned a couple of times.
I don't recall it.
Okay.
It might have, and I might have just glossed over it.
It was mentioned at the very start because Diane, as Bojack says, wrote the book on Secretariat.
Okay.
So as Pinky's in the office trying to encourage Bojack to have a ghostwriter, he says, there's this writer called Diane who wrote the book about Secretariat.
Right, okay.
So that sort of gives him a bit more of like a nudge that this might be a good person to write my book if they've written the Secretariat book. So he has been mentioned a couple of times, but this is the first time we see him. Also, Secretariat was a real racehorse in the 70s who won a lot of races. Dick, the interviewer, is asking Secretariat about being under investigation. Secretariat sort of denies these allegations that have been put to him. But what Dick also does on this show is he introduces this letter from Bojack. And the letter says, "Dear Secretariat, I am a horse just like you. I like to watch racing, and you are my favourite racer. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. And I think I'm on the right track. Get it? Track. Because horses run on tracks. And you are a horse, and I am a horse. Do you get it? Do you get my joke about the track?" I mean, we know this is Bojack as a child, even if the presenter didn't say it was from Bojack.
I think it says it from B Horseman.
Does it?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but we know it's from Bojack, don't we? Basically.
Yeah.
So we know it's from Bojack as a child as well.
That's also how Bojack speaks as an adult, though.
This is what I was sort of getting at.
Yeah.
Like, it actually sounds like Bojack.
Yeah.
Even though we don't know it's Bojack.
Yeah.
So Dick goes on to read the rest of the letter, and he says, "My question for you is, I'm a good kid and I like to play. I like to go to school, but sometimes I get sad. What do you do when you get sad? How do you not be sad?" Secretariat makes a couple of jokes, but then he says, addressing Bojack's question, he says, "Bojack, when I was your age, I got sad. A lot. I didn't come from such a great home, but one day I started running, and it seemed to make sense, so I just kept running. Bojack, when you get sad, you run straight ahead. You keep running forward no matter what. There are people in your life who are going to try and hold you back, slow you down, but don't let them. Don't stop running and don't ever look behind you. There's nothing behind you. All that exists is ahead." I think this shows us why Bojack sort of admires or sort of idolizes Secretariat so much. I mean, well, one, it's just like, I think all sort of as a young person, or even as an adult, sometimes you can see people that are quite charismatic or confident, and you can sort of almost wish you were in their shoes or wish you had traits like that. But I think even as a child, that's so much stronger when you see someone that's such a confident, strong adult. For some reason, there's something in us that wants to emulate that. But then the fact also that Secretariat is saying that he didn't have a great upbringing makes Bojack relate to Secretariat even more. So he thinks if someone like him came from a bad background like me, similar to me, maybe I can be as charismatic and as confident and as successful as he is when I'm older.
Like I said in the intro, there's themes in this episode that I've been learning about quite a lot over the last couple of years. And there's a couple of things in this that actually reminded me of stuff that's been addressed on Modern Wisdom podcast that I'm sure I must have mentioned in previous episodes of this podcast. Because
only in every podcast.
Yeah, exactly. when a lot of the time when he's talking about successful people and where success comes from, there was some psychology expert that was on saying that for someone that's like pathologically driven to success, there's always at least one of these four principles, and a lot of the time there's all four of them. And one of them is a deep sense of inadequacy stemming from childhood, like a sense that you're not enough, or you're unhappy, or you're from a difficult home or whatever, and you're trying to prove yourself because maybe you didn't receive the love or attention that you required as a child, and then by overachieving in success later in life, that's your coping mechanism for, if you have the admiration of the world, then that makes up for the fact that maybe you didn't have particularly much love in the childhood home. The other thing that I would say in reflection on Secretariat's words is the talk about there's nothing for you behind you.
Yes.
It's all in front of you.
Okay.
And without being an expert in psychology or having any training in psychology, I would assert that after watching Bojack for 12 episodes now, that he is dealing with a lot of unresolved trauma in his life. And that maybe by dealing with what is behind him and what he's been through, it might help him get better outcomes in his present and his future. Whereas Secretariat is basically giving Bojack a blueprint to say, hey, whatever shit you've been through, it's in the past, like ignore it, when a lot of the time that stuff adds up and it affects how we show up
Yes.
in our lives going forwards.
So I'm going to skip forward and then skip back a little bit.
I think that's appropriate. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we then get a sort of a flash forward in this flashback to 1 month later. And all we can see is a bridge, which is we're slowly zooming in on. And the radio presenter is telling us that Secretariat has been banned for life from competition. I do like how one of the presenters also says, it's a disgrace, it's what it is. It's the 70s, you can't cheat in sport and get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're listening to this radio clip, we're slowly zooming in on the bridge where Secretariat is standing on the edge of the bridge. Secretariat then commits suicide by jumping off the bridge. What do we think about him saying, I mean, to use your words, saying this sort of blueprint to Bojack about, look, don't worry about what you've done, don't worry about the past, don't worry about that, just look forward at what you can do going forward, and not following his own advice. Because he seems like the way he's so confident on this show seems like he has dealt with those issues that he had when he was younger. But clearly, if he's had to try and...
Secretariat.
I
completely disagree. For me, it was such a stark message that in one scene, you've got basically this influential and famous person who Bojack looks up to, basically saying, ignore your past trauma. Whatever you're dealing with, push it down, bottle it up, don't deal with it, forget about it, just move forward. That's basically what he's saying.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then in the very next scene, he's jumping off a bridge.
So do you think he is following that blueprint and that blueprint has led him to kill himself? Because
absolutely, 100%.
I was thinking that it was the advice was sort of like, don't dwell on things that you can't change in the past.
No, there's a slight nuance here. So, like, if you're the kind of person that's an overthinker, then you probably do dwell on, like, the smallest thing. There is a time and a place to move forward and look forward with your life. But you shouldn't do that at the expense of forgetting, not forgetting, but ignoring the trauma that got you there in the first place,
Yeah, I get that.
You should try your best, however you can, to deal with whatever trauma you have, to move forward in the most positive way, rather than just pushing it down and trying to forget about it, so to speak, in my opinion.
Overall, I think it is just this like first little intro is just showing us that it's just it's like the 1% of them that we see on TV.
Yeah.
So much more to people than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Just to end this intro in this sort of segment as well, after Secretariat has jumped off the bridge, one of the presenters says, "Oh, in other news, traffic is jammed up on the bridge because some idiot's parked his car on there."
Yeah.
Obviously not knowing that this idiot is the very person they've just been talking about. Or presumably, it could be a different bridge, but it's a nice little joke to finish that section.
Yeah.
After the opening credits, we arrive at the Golden Globe Awards show, and outside the venue on the sign, it says Golden Globes Award, a totally necessary awards show. I'm not sure what it is about the Golden Globe. Is it just that it's not the Oscars or something? But I don't know. I just hear a lot of jokes about in film and TV about it not being appreciated as a top tier award.
I guess so.
Or something. Yeah. I've just heard it a lot. Maybe there's some inside industry joke there. But Mr. Peanut Butter is presenting the Golden Globe Award for Best Comedy or Musical, which I think there's something in this whole scene about awards being given on face value rather than on merit. Or like, it's your time to receive an award.
Yes.
Or it would look good if we gave this person an award. I think that's what the whole joke is.
Like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you need one, so we're going to give it to you anyway. Yeah. It's not because of this film. But yeah, so a comedy or musical, obviously, are two completely different genres, and you couldn't pitch them against each other. But Mr. Peanut Butter announces that the winner of this award is in fact not a comedy or a musical, but Bojack's book, One Trick Pony. While he makes his way up onto stage, I do like how the voiceover sort of mentions that this is Bojack's first appearance since his forced removal in 1992, where he exchanged blows with Sir Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And I just like that Bojack could annoy someone so much that even Paul McCartney would stop fighting.
Yeah.
While Bojack's accepting his award, he points out the fact that this is a book and not a comedy or a musical. I'd like to point out that the fact that it's not actually Bojack's book either. It's Diane's book.
Yeah.
Diane should be getting this award, really. From this moment, he now constantly has the award in his hand all the way through the episode.
I didn't even notice that until like later on in the episode. I was just like, why is he still holding the award? My brain just accepted it for most of this episode.
There was definitely a point, I think, where later on in the episode, I was like, oh, it's interesting he's still holding it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if he doesn't put it down.
Yeah.
And he's in every scene that he's in now in his hand. Do we think that's just because he's really proud of it? Is it just a joke? Because it's not mentioned.
No
one says to him, like, why are you walking around with this in your hand all the time? Like he walks with, like he's, like at the beginning of this season, he kept going around with the DVDs. Unfortunately.
Do you know, I don't know why, but towards the end of the episode, in the last scene, when he's still holding it and he's alone, I got the sense that it was like kind of like a kid with a safety blanket.
Okay.
This actually ties into what I was just saying about like successful people not necessarily having the best childhood, because if they're not getting the validation from their caregivers that they are enough, then this award is kind of like validation that he is enough, that he is worth something. So maybe it's that, or maybe I'm just reading too much into that.
But I'm just questioning the fact that he hasn't really done. It doesn't feel like he's done anything to earn this.
No.
It's not horsing around that he spent years as the main character on. It's not some prestigious film. It's a book about him. So maybe it's like his life is worthy of a Golden Globe.
Well, Bojack being Bojack, he might consider that it's about him, even if he,
that's it's not validation for his life.
But I mean that like he might instinctively be taking credit for this, even though that. He's not, like you rightfully pointed out, is that he's not actually done anything to create this work.
Oh, also, while he's doing this acceptance speech, he says a lot of people said to him, are you sure you want to publish this book? It's pretty personal. Bojack said he said to them, if I can make just one person feel a little less alone, then it's all worth it. And they said, that's really brave. And I said, well, I'm not one to call myself brave, but if you said it, then yeah, I am. So this is also the opposite of the whole episode before, where he had a massive tantrum about the book and didn't want any of the book to be released and didn't care what anyone was thinking or whether it would help anybody. All that he was doing was thinking about himself. Now that it has been shown to have a positive outcome on his life, he's happy to take credit for it, and he's happy to pretend that he wants to do it all the time, which I think is quite
a dick move. He's just lying.
He's just lying. Yeah, he's just lying.
He's just straight up lying, being a dickhead.
Okay.
Bojack being Bojack.
At the end of this speech, Bojack then invites everyone to an after party at his restaurant. We then cut to this restaurant where Bojack's sort of questioning why he did invite everyone to his restaurant. He's also sat with Todd at the party, who says he's going to get some cotton candy, and he asks Bojack if he wants some. And Bojack first says no, but then pauses and then says yes, which is obviously a reference to the first episode again, where the episode finished with him puking cotton candy off the balcony.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Princess Caroline then approaches Bojack with Vincent Adultman. Princess says, cheer up, dummy, your book is a huge success. Everybody loves you. You just won a Golden Globe. If you can't be happy tonight, maybe you'll never be happy again. To which Bojack replies, I'm sorry, is that supposed to be encouraging? Because it's super bleak. There's something about what Princess Caroline says here that I feel like I do hear. I feel like it's quite an old mantra of just cheer up and be happy about what you've got now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't be happy now, you'll never be happy. But I don't feel like it's very constructive, and it's not very Bojack's right. She's basically saying you might, if you're not happy now, you could never be happy. You'll probably never be happy again in the future if you take it literally.
No, but Princess Carolyn does have a point, though. This isn't just any normal situation. He's just won a national award.
But no,
and now he's holding.
And now Diane's written it.
Yeah, so she doesn't know that. She's not taking that into account. This is the other side of the argument. So Princess Carolyn, as far as Bojack is concerned, they are sat in his restaurant that he owns. He's hosting a party. He's invited all these people here because he's just won a national award for something and got national recognition for it.
He's still upset.
And he's back in the spotlight. He's got what he's been searching for. He's got recognition and fame again.
Okay.
And he's not happy with that. Then Princess Carolyn's like, if that doesn't make you happy, what will? And she does have a point there.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't see the fact that it's actually all super hollow.
Yes, maybe that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, she's seen it as like the superficial side of it. Like on the surface, this is everything that Bojack wants. But deep down, it's absolutely nothing that he wants.
But that's also the problem with all this sort of these superficial things that we have in our life that we're supposed to be happy for, don't actually give us happiness most of the time. And actually the things that would give us happiness probably would be the opposite.
Well, isn't that the theme of the whole episode?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, no, there is a lot of that. Yeah, should we wait for Mr. Peanut Butter's laugh?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We're both teasing it.
Also, I'm going to just bring up a phrase. Well, I'm going to sort of reference a phrase Diane said I think it was in the last episode. But if this is the peak of Bojack's success, and he will never be as happy as he is tonight, what is he supposed to do in future? So like Diane's wedding being the happiest day of her life, what does that mean for the rest of his future?
Yeah.
If this is the greatest success he will have, maybe that's what he's could be thinking about.
But he knows that this isn't a success.
So Mr. Peanut Butter also joins the group and he asks Vincent how things are going at the old 9 to 5. And Vincent replies, I went to the stock market today. I did a business. So this is highlighting Vincent's character again. And so I think it's highlighting, hopefully it's highlighting what I was trying to say about Vincent it's the expected actions of an adult that he's giving off. Like it's the things that we have to say as an adult to be recognized as an adult. And it's just all these phrases that he just keeps spouting that we have to spout as well. We have to keep coming up with them to tell other adults that we're adults.
Yes, but also I would say that there's the other side of it where he's not saying anything specific and people are just hearing what they want to hear.
Yes, yeah.
So like when he says, I went to the stock market and I did a business. If someone said that to you in real life, you'd be like, do you need to sit down?
No, but maybe it's showing how inane the stuff is we do talk about as adults. Like, I can't believe what HR were getting me to do yesterday. Like, I had to do all this training.
Possibly,
like,
yeah.
It's rubbish, mate. I don't
Yeah.
It's not actually important stuff. You're just saying what you think another adult wants to hear to signal that you're also an adult.
I think that is contextual, though.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, okay.
Like, I really enjoy my work and I enjoy speaking to other people who also work in that field as well. I think.
Okay, but I suppose I'm sort of thinking maybe I would switch it to like more mundane small talk where it's like, traffic was terrible today, wasn't it?
And like I said, it's maybe a reflection that people aren't actually listening.
Yes. And signalling what they want to.
It's like
they want to be perceived.
I went to the stock market and I did a business.
And maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe I think what Vincent does is he boils down our inane chatter to what it is, just ridiculous phrases that we say to each other.
So on the subject of Vincent Adultman, it's just the same joke over.
It is okay. Yeah. We've been reminded of the
Yeah. And I'm like, when's the payoff coming? Which I'm assuming it is because you said he's maybe your favorite character or one of your favorite characters, and
no, I think I like him as a character, but I like what he represents rather than his like characteristics.
Okay.
I like that. I prefer the message, my interpretation of it, the message behind Vincent, rather than I find him relatable or I find him funny.
Okay. Why do we think that Bojack is the only one that sees Vincent Adultman for what he is? Is it because everyone is trying to be nice and sees him for how he wants to be seen, whereas Bojack is more cynical and jaded and he sees him for how he really is?
I sort of used to like the idea that Bojack just recognises this person as a very childish and immature person, and doesn't really get why Princess Caroline, who's like smart, intelligent, and driven, why she's messing about with someone that's a kid who acts so immaturely. So maybe he just can't get his head around this relationship, and maybe it is actually just a person in a trench coat, an adult, but like I say, he just sees them as so immature, he literally visualizes them as children.
Yeah.
I don't think that is the case, but it's the way he phrases all these jokes, the way he makes all the comments about it's 3 kids in a trench coat, and we can sort of see that it's, well, again, we're seeing it through Bojack's eyes, aren't we then? But yeah, I just think that there's something there that and maybe this is why I like Vincent, is I feel like there's a lot more to him than, there's a lot more they're saying with the character rather than just cheap jokes about a kid in a trench coat.
Yeah, so this goes back to like what I was saying before about the things that he says and people just like brush it off or accept it. I went to the stock market and I did a business. Like everyone that he says that to just accepts it. They see just what they want to see. They just see the face value that he's talking nonsense, but they don't question that. But much like, but then that's also reflected on the bigger scale that it's 3 kids in a trench coat, so they don't see that. Whereas Bojack's the only one that's like cynical enough to question what he sees around him, especially given that it's in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thought. So Bojack is a very cynical character, and I think the show itself is quite cynical, and maybe that's a reflection of Raphael Bob Waxberg and the show creators, because their art has to be inspired from somewhere.
Yeah.
So they created the character of Bojack as this cynical, kind of no-nonsense character who isn't afraid to piss people off or say it how it is and act exactly how he wants and say what he wants. So maybe there's a lot of stuff, we've mentioned this before, that there's a lot of stuff in the episodes that are quote-unquote reflective of the absurdity in Hollywood. Everyone in the show is like a LA stereotype. So the creators of the show see the world this way. So the main character sees the world this way, like cutting through the bullshit, showing the world as it is. And maybe that's why Bojack, being the only real cynical character in the show, because all the rest of the characters, I don't know, Diane's kind of cynical, but most of the characters are like positive or too wrapped up in their own bullshit to care about what other people think, that he's the only one that sees them as 3 kids in a trench coat.
No, I like that, us being wrapped up in what we are, not actually seeing what's in front of us. So now Bojack is left with Mr. Peanut Butter, and he says to him, Diane was right, this book has been everything she said it would have been. He goes on to ask how she is, and Mr. Peanut Butter says this book has been great for her as well, and he makes a remark about them being like the Brangelinas now. Then Mr. Peanut Butter starts to ask Bojack how he is, very concerningly, but then just as Bojack's about to reply, Mr. Peanut Butter gets distracted by Erica, and he calls off to Erica and runs off to go and talk to her.
I saw it as another representative of people are too wrapped up in their own bullshit.
Okay.
They don't care. He only asks Bojack how he is, giving him lip service. He doesn't actually care how Bojack is.
Yeah, he doesn't really care who he is. But maybe he wants to seem like he's caring.
Exactly, yeah.
I did also think it's quite like a dog in a way, being distracted very easily.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether there's a bit of that.
Yeah, definitely.
A fan of the book then approaches Bojack and she tells him how much she loved the book because it's so naked and honest and revealing. She says, I love the part about how you became famous so you could be constantly surrounded by distraction and wouldn't have to be alone by yourself. I thought that was a really profound observation, she says. And Bojack completely misreads this situation. And he says, do you want to come back to my place to get a little bit more naked, honest and revealing? But this woman's very put aback by that and says no thanks. But then Bojack turns around and there happens to be another woman who he sort of says, how about you? And she's like, yeah, okay. So after having sex with this woman, he falls off the bed, and this is where he's reminded of Diane's biography of Secretariat. But this also gives us the sort of the introduction that Bojack has this idea that he might want to make the Secretariat book again. Or maybe it could be
the Secretariat movie.
Secretariat movie again, yes. He wants to make the Secretariat movie. There is also a bit, as I'm saying it out loud now, where I think he might have been thinking about Diane a bit as he saw that book.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And he may have been thinking about not a way to get back together with her, but maybe subconsciously it was.
Maybe he hasn't thought about her recently, and this was a reminder.
Yeah. But this does transport us to Diane shopping in the supermarket, where she is being bothered by the paparazzi birds. But at the supermarket, Diane receives a phone call, and she gets a phone call from someone called Sebastian Sinclair.
I like this character.
Okay, he does quite arrogantly, after introducing himself, say, hold your applause, like people would usually clap for him.
Yeah.
And Diane obviously wasn't going to applaud, so she doesn't. And then he goes, oh, maybe you can applause a little bit.
Yeah.
And she does clap. What is it that you like about this character?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's just that he's new and fresh. Is it
his voice?
Yeah. I like his voice. I like his... What is he? Is he a lemur or something? What's his animal?
Like a leopard or something.
Oh, he is.
Yeah,
he is. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. He's like, might even be like a snow leopard. Yeah, I don't know. He's very forthcoming, very positive. Obviously, he's well up his own arse, but I like it when rich people use their money for good.
Okay.
And whether he's doing it just for it's the old thing, isn't it? There's no such thing as a truly altruistic thing. He might be doing it to make himself feel good, but he is trying to do something good for whatever reason or whatever motive that is. And with a show with a lot of negativity in it, it was nice to have a good guy. I think he's the closest thing to like a hero.
Okay.
The show has seen. Okay. You know, he's positive. He's rich. He's very outgoing. He's seems to be championing a good cause. He's an action star. Like he's out in war and stuff. Yeah, it's probably the closest thing to a hero that we've had in the show so far.
I'm going to skip over some stuff that I've written because I think I didn't know whether to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up later.
Okay.
In a different episode.
About this character?
Yeah, there's a couple of visuals that I think may have been a bit too subtle.
Okay.
But I do agree with you. I think I remember seeing him the first time, and I think it's his voice, I think he sounds again like so confident and reassuring and sort of well read as well. It's an actor called Keegan Michael Key.
I know that name.
Peel and Key.
Key and Peele.
Key and Peele.
Yeah.
Which I think he's put a lot of effort into this voice.
Yeah.
Because I don't get his voice at all when I've seen him in other shows.
Yeah.
And actually, I think probably when I looked at his sort of filmography, it's absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Like the amount of stuff he's been in as voice acting and acting, like absolutely. So he might be bringing a lot to this character.
Yeah. He amused me as well. When
because of his like pompous, like
I think so, yeah, and like it's so absurd. Like you said, like hold your applause, and it's like, okay, a little applause. Yeah. I understood on the phone at the supermarket applauding.
Yeah. You're right. I think there's a freshness to him as well.
Yes, he's just different. I think he's very, very different to every other character I've seen in season one so far. He's very different.
So he says that he got her number from Pinky and he's looking for a journalist to follow him around for a few months and document his daring exploits. Diane says this isn't the sort of thing she usually writes about, but Sebastian says if you can make people care about Bojack Horseman, surely you can make them care about orphans with missing limbs. We need to wake people up. And Diane jokes and she says, oh, well, I am a morning person. And then Sebastian says, I hope that's morning with a U, because this is deadly serious. Which he sort of, maybe it's like his wordplay as well. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
Back at Mr. Peanut Butter's house, Diane is explaining to Mr. Peanut Butter Sebastian's offer and how she's going to work in all these sort of deprived countries. She says, I want to do something important. I want to help people and do good work and sleep on the ground, poop in a bucket. But Mr. Peanut Butter contradicts her and says, no one wants to poop in a bucket. And Diane says, maybe I do. Maybe I want to poop in a bucket. To which Mr. Peanut Butter says, honey, if you want to poop in a bucket, we can get you a bucket. You don't have to go all the way to Czechoslovakia. Mr. Peanut Butter.
I don't think he says Czechoslovakia.
I can't say the word. It's a made-up country.
I think he
gets two countries.
I think it says Chechnya-vakia.
Chechnya. He mixes different.
Yeah. Afterwards, he even says, "Did I say that right?"
Yeah. Basically,
he questions himself.
So because there is a joke that people in LA or maybe in America don't know the rest of the world exists or countries are called so there's a bit of a joke there, but he's taking her very literally, like, what, we can get you a bucket to poop in if you want to poop in a bucket. But Diane's sort of saying, no, I want to experience different ways of life. I want to travel. I want to feel hardship. I want to get away from the luxuries that LA has. Because she says it's not just the pooping in the bucket. I think it might be good for me to get out of LA for a while. There's quite a few motivations here, I think. One of them is Diane's sort of need to, as a writer, maybe to have a subject to write about that's interesting and not just another TV show or another film or another story. So I think there is something there that I get from Diane. I think there's another thing of she's probably still unsure about the relationship with Mr. Peanut Butter. In earlier episodes, she wasn't really confident with the relationship and it doesn't feel like that's been resolved. So maybe she wants a bit of time away from Mr. Peanut Butter. And I also think she hasn't resolved this situation with Bojack in the book. So she maybe just thinks that she just wants to get away from that and distance herself. So I think there's a lot of motivations for Diane wanting to.
I also think that this is, you said about the situation with her and Mr. Peanut Butter and how they're not a compatible relationship. This just highlights that even more.
Yeah.
Like, this is Diane's opportunity to go out and do some really proper hard-hitting journalism, have the opportunity of a lifetime to go to a foreign country and follow this seemingly interesting character around doing good work. Doing, like, this could be like a huge success for her, especially if she is as good as writing as what we're led to believe. And Mr. Peanut Butter doesn't even consider it.
Yes.
He didn't even say, let's talk about it. He's like, no, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't do that.
So, yeah, I'm going to read what Mr. Peanut Butter says, but I'm going to come back to it because I think Mr. Peanut Butter might be thinking completely whole circle. Because what Mr. Peanut Butter says is, well, I suppose he does actually say you can go. So he says, sweetie, you know I support you, whatever you want to do. But you're not going to find what you're looking for in all these made-up, awful places. The universe is a cruel, uncaring void. The key to being happy isn't to search for meaning. It is to just keep yourself busy with unimportant nonsense, and eventually you'll be dead. To finish the scene, Diane says, oh, maybe I will keep my options open. But yeah, so brilliant assessment from Mr. Peanut Butter about life.
The line of the episode.
The line of the episode here. Okay.
That pretty much, I think, summarises what a lot of this episode is about.
So to focus on what Mr. Peanut Butter is saying here, it's the idea that just, I suppose it's an overthinking idea, isn't it, as well? Like, don't search for the deepest meaning in life. Like, just be content and happy with what's going on.
I think it goes deep. I think you can go deeper than that.
Okay.
I think most people don't search for any meaning in life.
Okay.
The way that the modern world is constructed.
But Mr. Peanut Butter's saying that's the point of life. That's how you're going to be happy.
Because that's how he's conditioned to be. Because that's the way that society runs.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't think Mr. Peanut... so you still don't think... Because I think he's hinted at this in the past, or I've hinted at this in the past, that Mr. Peanut Butter is a deep theological thinker who understands that happiness is in the small things in life and that you should enjoy the small things rather than looking for the big things.
Absolutely.
Do you think he
Categorically not.
He literally just enjoys the smallest
Yes.
elements of life?
Yes. I didn't hear Mr. Peanut Butter saying this line.
Oh, you heard the writers, did you?
Yes. And it can be interpreted however you want, but I think it's just more a reflection on modern society.
Yeah.
This ties into the dealing with your trauma as well. That most people are happy just to coast through life, enjoy the little things, and not really go any deeper. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if that's how you want to live your life, then that's fine. Each to their own. But Mr. Peanut Butter might be like that. He might enjoy his life like that. But that's not Diane. Diane is a deeper thinker. She's a writer. The way that she constructed Bojack's book is an example of that. It wasn't just a lip service.
Yeah, but it wasn't just a standard biography.
No. She wanted to go deeper and she wanted to understand. I think Diane is one of those people that wants to go deeper, that she does want to find meaning, and she is a deep thinker and she wants to see more. Whereas maybe Mr. Peanut Butter isn't. Maybe Mr. Peanut Butter genuinely is like, I'm a dog and all I care about is chasing my tail and playing fetch.
Diane, I feel like, is suggesting I think she is suggesting that she would like to write stuff that has purpose and meaning, and this might be an avenue of doing that. But she's also sort of suggesting that with the mention of the pooping in the bucket or sleeping on the floor, I feel like she's suggesting also that she wants to strip away the luxuries and the lifestyle she has so she can appreciate, so she can get a better idea of what's important. Mr. Peanut Butter's got the foresight to see, you will go to these places and you will come back and you will say, I can't believe how good it is to have a flush toilet. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate sleeping on a nice comfy bed in a warm house. And Mr. Peanut Butter, I think, could be saying, you don't push yourself into horrible situations just so you can enjoy what you have now. Just enjoy what you've got now.
I disagree.
Okay.
I saw it as Diane expressing her desire to go on this adventure and write this incredible piece, and sleeping on the floor and pooping in a bucket is just a byproduct of that. It's not what she actually wants. Whereas Mr. Peanut Butter heard that and thought that's literally what she's going for.
Yeah, so again, they're incompatible. They don't understand.
She could have said anything. She could have said, I want to eat cold soup out of a tin. I want to sleep in a tent. Yeah. Like, it could have been anything that's associated with the hard life of what she's what she might be pursuing. But she happened to pick sleeping on the floor and pooping in a bucket. Mr. Peanut Butter heard that and went, you want to poop in a bucket?
Yeah.
Babe, you can do that here. You don't need to go across the world to do that. I think he's completely missed the point of what he's talking about.
No, I think he has, but if you had two people, one that was just amazingly grateful, that has thought about all the hardships in life and the deeper thinker, and has realised that there's no point to that.
You think that's Mr. Peanut?
And then comes round to the idea of, so I've done that, and now I just need to be like content and happy. Because there is no meaning in life. Like, we are atoms just put together. There's no purpose. There's no meaning. There's no journey of discovery that we're designed to go through or engineered to find. We just experience life as it happens to us, and then we die. Like he says, you are literally just got to keep yourself busy. Because if you don't keep yourself busy, you're going to try and find purpose in something that isn't a purpose in. So you will drive yourself mad doing that. So the ultimate answer is just to
give up.
Sort of, but also acknowledge that it's okay. That's okay. You've got to acknowledge that it's okay that there's no purpose. Like Diane's wants to go on this journey of like discovery and she wants to do good. Like, you don't have to do good. You just experience life. There's no precursor for Diane having to be this person that she thinks she has to be. She can do that or she cannot do that, and the world will go on. And ultimately, it's all insignificant in the grand scale of things anyway.
What do you think Mr. Peanut Butter thinks?
I like to think that there's moments like this where he expresses a slightly deeper thought than just being on a very shallow level.
I completely.
Maybe there's not. Maybe there's not.
Yeah, no, I think. And I think Mr. Peanut Butter. I don't know. Maybe I'll be proven wrong in later episodes, but I have got absolutely no reason to think that Mr. Peanut Butter has any kind of deep philosophical reasoning in his little puppy brain.
Again, maybe it's me projecting into characters and reading what I want.
I think it comes back to exactly the same principle that keeps coming up again and again.
Okay. What's that?
People only hear what they want to hear.
Okay, yeah.
So he heard my girlfriend wants to go to another country I've never heard of.
She wants to leave me. She wants to go.
Exactly, yeah. My wife wants to leave me. She wants to go to a country that I've never heard of so she can go and poop in a bucket. And my way to keep her from doing that is to say, hey, you can poop in a bucket here. Yeah. He's not listened to anything about, because this has come up time and time again that they're incompatible, seemingly, and that he doesn't really know who she is or what she wants. He would be perfectly happy. Well, seemingly, he'd be perfectly happy if she never wrote anything of significance again and was just his wife and they had a nice time. Going back to this principle of like, you don't need to search for meaning, you don't need to do anything significant, just be content with what you've got and then die.
He just enjoys going to eat burritos as big as their head. Quoting previous.
Yeah, exactly. I think the real beauty in life is a combination of the two.
We now cut to the Vigor offices where Princess Caroline is with Bojack. And Princess Caroline asks Bojack if Vincent seemed a bit weird to him last night. To which Bojack confirms again, well, he's just 3 kids in a trench coat, so no. But Princess Caroline says, she doesn't really listen to what Bojack's saying, and she says they're going through a rough patch. He works full-time at the business factory, and all he wants to do when he gets home is watch R-rated movies, which is, again, what children want to do as adults, basically. But yeah, she does.
Yeah, okay, so I'll be 100%. I am 100% now that the whole premise of this character is that people they don't pay attention. That they're just in their own head, they're only concerned with their own stuff, and they only hear what they want to hear. Because she's just said this strong, independent, capable, very successful, quote-unquote successful Hollywood agent has just said that he spends all day in his job at the business factory. Yeah.
And he doesn't refer to them as movies, they're R-rated movies, the adult movie.
Yeah.
We don't call an 18, we don't say, I want to watch an 18 movies.
Yeah. Then
she announces that actually this Golden Globe has meant loads of offers have come in. But Bojack says he thinks it's time to finally make Secretariat. And Princess Caroline sort of makes a comment about his age. And Bojack says, you asked me what I want to do, and that's what I want. That's all I've ever wanted. And if I can't get it now, then all this has been for nothing. Princess Caroline's clearly frustrated because there's offers coming in which is just like money for old rope, like just easy money, like big contracts, like you'd be set for life basically. And he's on his way to becoming a big movie star. Particularly when she spent so long as his agent doing all this work and not having any money, sorting out all of his problems, and all that hassle she's had for 18 years from Bojack is now just about started to pay off. But Bojack doesn't want to take the easy option. He wants to basically make this completely different movie himself, even though he's twice the age of Secretariat when he died.
That was something that I didn't mention as well. Coincidentally, he died at 27. Yeah. Of course, he was 20.
The famous age people die when they're.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favourite lines, actually. Princess Caroline sort of is frustrated by this situation that Bojack's presenting. So she yells out to Laura, "Clear the rest of the day. I have to push a boulder up a hill and then have it roll over me time and time again with no regard for my well-being." So this is a reference to Sisyphus, which is a Greek myth. I think he was a man that basically tricked the gods, and they punished him by having him have to roll a boulder up a hill, and just as it got to the top, the boulder would roll down the hill, and then he had to repeat this basically for eternity. First of all, I'll get it out of the way first. There's the idea that Bojack's making things hard for her. Yeah. And she's saying that it's basically like, you're asking me to push a boulder up a hill. Mm-hmm. But what's really interesting is there's a philosopher called Camus, who's quite famous, and he's got a theory of the absurd. And he talks about Sisyphus, and he says that we have to see Sisyphus as happy pushing this boulder up a hill.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly why. I've never read the book. But the idea is life is futile. You will never ultimately achieve what you want to achieve, or you have achieved it and now you have something else you want to achieve, so you're always left with something to achieve. But I think it's the striving to achieve, the striving to push the boulder to the top that actually makes you happy.
Yeah, purpose.
So you have to accept him as happy, which I think is actually the writers telling us that although Princess Caroline would like us to think that she'd be happier if Bojack just accepted the offers, she's actually happier with struggles. She's happier with hard work. It's quite nice how they've done it with that.
Okay. I don't know if the writers intended that reference.
I think with the boulder pushing up the hill was quite significant.
Okay. Yeah. But going all the way through to this philosopher talking about how
the thing.
I mean, it does track, like, modern psychology speaks about this a lot, that like a lot of people that suffer with depression can not, it's not always, but sometimes it can be linked to a lack of purpose. A good way to live a more positive and happier existence is to have a sense of purpose, whether that's your career or whether that's being a parent or, having something to work towards. It's the old trope, isn't it? It's the journey, not the destination. And there's been a couple of podcasts that I've listened to recently that whenever you're trying to achieve something, when you look back on it, it's not necessarily the end goal that you look fondly on. It's the days, weeks, months, years that you put into it to get to that.
So at Mr. Peanut Butter's house, Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter are now trying to come up with a new project. And Mr. Peanut Butter says bi-monthly curated box of snacks was an enormous success, but he got into this business to make movies. Todd says, I've got a whole stack of great scripts here. Any one of them would make a wonderful movie. But I also have this non-movie idea. Mr. Peanut Butter is very excited about this.
Literally within seconds of him saying that it needs to be a movie and not a non-movie thing. Yeah, okay.
And Todd says he saw an empty storefront and he said to himself, you know what the world needs? A store where people can buy Halloween stuff. And Mr. Peanut Butter says, I feel like that's been done before. And Todd says, yeah, in October. But how come you've never seen a Halloween store in January? It's an untapped market. And Mr. Peanut Butter says, yeah, a Halloween store that opens year round. But Todd interrupts and says, no, just January.
See, when they said it was a Halloween store that possibly opens year round, I was like, that's not a bad idea.
Okay.
Yeah, but they'd be like spooky decorations and things like that.
Well, they do have Christmas stores. Some places, there's a few Christmas stores that open year round, isn't there?
Yeah, I would say a Halloween store that's open year round would be more successful than a Christmas store that's open year round.
Yeah.
Because I know some people, most of them female, that literally live for Halloween.
Yes. Yeah, it's their Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like if they had a shop where they could go and get spooky decorations and cool little things all year round, they'd definitely go for it. Yeah. But it's the moment when it's like, no, it's open only January. But yeah, that's where you get absurd.
We now find Bojack talking to Lenny Turtletub. who actually agrees with him and thinks it's a good time to make Secretariat. Bojack convinces him and he says, fine, you've got yourself a go pitcher, kid. And by you, I mean me. And by go pitcher, I mean I'll make some phone calls and see what I can do. And by kid, I mean middle-aged adult. There's something about how he phrases it and stuff.
I still like this character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's one of my favorite, he's definitely my favorite, like, bit part character in the show. He's not in every episode, but when he does come in, I do like his scenes.
So back at Bojack's house, Bojack is reading the Secretariat book, but Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter sort of sneak into the living room trying to be quiet. And this is where Todd announces, has this ever happened to you? Which reminds me of sort of like a very old school TV advert, or it's a very tropey way of introducing an idea.
It's infomercial.
Has this ever happened to you? And Bojack sort of points out, why are you talking like that? Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter then set up the scenario where Mr. Peanut Butter wants to buy some Halloween outfits, but it's January and the stores won't open for another 9 months. And Bojack confirms what everybody's thinking, that no one's ever at any time for anything like that. But the pairs just ignore Bojack and present their idea of Halloween in January, a truly immersive Halloween experience. Bojack comments with disbelief, unbelievable. When your powers combine, you are somehow more stupid than the sum of your stupids. It's quite a nice way of saying it, because it's that synergy argument, isn't it? Usually we use that sort of phrase in a positive way, but he's used it in a negative, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I did enjoy that. Because it's true as well. It's absurd.
We then cut to Elefante's, where Princess Caroline is having dinner with Vincent Adultman. And there is a bit of a visual joke of the valet is a giraffe, but he has to get in a very small sports car that's pulled up, so he wraps his neck round in a circle a couple of times so he can get in and drive. Princess Caroline is complaining to Vincent that all he ever does is talk about business. And she says, what's under that coat? You need to let me in. But Vincent makes up some very vague excuse about going to meet a guy in a place. And Caroline says, I thought I wanted to date a real adult, but I'm actually young at heart. I need to feel the grass between my toes. I want to wear jeans. I want to dance. And finally, she says there's got to be a difference between monogamy and monotony. To which Vincent sort of says, what? He sort of doesn't understand what she's saying because he's a child and doesn't understand these two words. And Princess Caroline's clearly very shocked by this because she's interpreted it as him not believing in monogamy rather than not understanding what it is. And she says, clearly we've got a different understanding of what this is. I'd like to be an adult about this, but frankly, I'm hurt. Yeah, so loads of references to an adult and a child there, and what she's saying, the difference between them. After Princess Caroline asks Vincent to leave, he says, okay, but he pauses and then says, can I have another soda? Continuing the joke about him being a child. We then return to Lenny's office where Bojack is now auditioning for the role of Secretariat. Also in the office is the director that Lenny's found for this movie, and she's called Kelsey Jennings, who is in a bad mood because she's already seen 30 people read for this role and is pretty sick of watching auditions. And there is a bit of a bit here, but I kind of like how he's gone into this audition with like preparation. Like we saw him reading the Secretariat book earlier, and he's going in, and I think he says like, oh, I was a big fan of Secretariat, and he had a really, and she's already heard that. Yeah. And I like the idea that this was nerve-wracking enough for him as it was. And now to find out that the person doesn't even want to really hear your audition or isn't bothered about your audition, it just makes it 10 times harder. Yeah. And I empathise a bit with him in this situation. So Bojack sits down to start the reading, and one of the ladies reads out the line, hey, ain't you that horse that won all them races? Okay, before I go on to the rest, I will point out the similarity of that line to ain't you the horse from Horsing Around?
Okay, yeah.
So again, because there's this, I'll go on to the rest of what he says though. So Bojack then continues and he says, "Not today, ma'am. Today I'm just a customer who wants a warm slice of pie. Can I ask you a question?" the lady says. "When you're out there on that there racetrack, what are you running from?" And Bojack continues, "You want to know the truth? Nothing. Everyone's running from something, sugar," she says. "No, I'm running from nothing. I'm terrified of nothing. People come up to me. They want my autograph. They want my picture. They think they recognize something in me. And I want to be that person they think I am, but I'm not. They see greatness in me and mistake it for goodness. But I know there's nothing there. As fast as I run, I can't get away from that." So these lines work really well for Bojack because he is just reflecting his life onto Secretariat, which I think is what some actors would say acting is anyway. It's just using your past experiences in a new situation. But it's so similar to Bojack. The other person in this scene that Bojack's doing with this lady sees him as this one-dimensional famous person that she's seen on TV. And that's what Bojack feels everybody sees him like. We are going through a scene of Secretariat here, but we're also just hearing Bojack's thoughts on himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a really good opportunity for Bojack because there's a very strong correlation between what the character in this movie has gone through and what he's gone through in his life. So it feels like it fits quite well.
Yep. And they're both horses.
And they're both horses, yes.
Which Andrew Garfield is not. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert for the next bit, yeah. I'm just going to point out, there's something about the line, "They see greatness and mistake it for goodness."
Yeah.
I think that's very...
Yeah, I didn't really...
telling of sort of celebrity culture and fame and...
I didn't really pick up on that first time round, but now you've read it, I do like it.
I don't really feel like it's Bojack talking to the audience, and it's not Secretariat, but the writers are still making a point about us raising celebrities to like a godlike status. This person behind the counter is like gobsmacked at seeing this celebrity, and Bojack's line in this scene is, "Not today, I'm just a customer that wants a warm slice of pie." It's just another human being.
Yeah.
And we forget that these heroic people are just human beings as well. So after this audition, Lenny and Kelsey are clearly amazed at how well Bojack did. And even throughout the audition, they're sort of getting more and more invested in what he's saying. But just as Lenny's about to say how amazing the audition was, the assistant...
It's a good audition as well.
Yeah, like I say, he seemed... Okay, so do we think he's a good actor then?
Based on that, yes.
Okay.
Because when he was reading the lines...
You were quite...
I don't think... Yeah, we see it as a reflection of Bojack's life. But I'll be honest, when I first heard him reading it, I didn't initially make that connection. Which now you've read it back to me is quite obvious, but I just heard him being an actor.
Okay.
And it's probably the first time in the show that I've heard him properly acting.
Not any of the sitcom acting.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
Yeah. And even after he finishes the line, everyone in the room is kind of like, "Whoa, yeah, okay, that was really good."
But then the assistant in the room goes, "Oh my God, we've got Andrew Garfield," and they're all excited then. And I think Lenny says, "Well, you don't turn down Spider-Man," and they're all really happy.
Yeah.
And Bojack doesn't. He has this nice, it's a bit like, it's quite movie-esque actually, where he says, "Andrew Garfield," and like it's this nemesis.
Well, isn't it a reference to Garfield?
Oh, is it? I don't know.
I think, what's his owner called? Norman?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that there's a common trope where you hear him shout Garfield and it's from outside the house.
Right. Okay.
Like it pans away. And in this scene, the band pans away from the building and you hear him shouting Garfield.
So it works on a couple.
I don't know if I'm making that up, but I think...
If it does, then it works on a couple of levels, because I like him having this nemesis of Garfield now.
Yeah.
So we now find ourselves with Diane, who is on the phone to Sebastian St. Clair. And Sebastian says, now the pills are going to give you nightmares. I mean, just horrifying. But the malaria will give you death. So you're going to want to take the pills. So I think there's something quite nice in that line as well, where just the way he says it, he doesn't just say like, I remember to take your malaria pills.
Mm-hmm.
He has this quite elaborate way of saying things.
Mm-hmm.
He then says, hang on, a mosquito just got in my tent.
Oh, yeah.
And he turns around and says, what do you want? And it's actually a full-size person in this anamorphic world as a mosquito.
There's something happened in my brain during this bit.
Yeah.
Because the camera pulls away and it's a very, very short space of time. And when he initially says the line, my brain didn't twig straight away. But as the camera pulls away, literally just before this mosquito steps into the tent, I was like, I know what's going to happen here.
I was going to say, I think there's something away, and it might be this, this Keys guy.
Mm-hmm.
The way he just throws the line away.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the mosquito's got in my tent. And I think it catches me off guard every time.
Yeah.
Diane then gets a call from Princess Caroline. Princess Caroline says they're making a movie about Secretariat and they want to bring Diane on board as a character consultant. And Diane's a bit unsure about this. And she says she's been offered another job and that there are orphans in Sudan. And as she's about to elaborate a bit more, Princess Caroline interrupts and says, look, take this job and you can buy all the orphans you want. As if it's like, maybe as also, maybe it's a bit of a reference to celebrities adopting orphans and
I didn't think about that.
But I think it's like she's not, like you said, she's not listening to what she's saying. She's just trying to convince her.
Yeah.
Then Princess Caroline says, look, if you really want to help people, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of money in your pocket. Take the job now, help the orphans later. There's always later.
Is there though?
Do you mean in terms of like she will always be preoccupied with this busyness, or the opportunity, or that the opportunity will disappear?
No, I'm going deeper than that.
Go on then.
There's no guarantee of tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. Princess Caroline finishes this conversation by saying she needs to get her whiskers trimmed. She runs into walls for days, but I look hot. But she must be in the salon at this time as well, because I've written there's a visual joke of in the salon, there's a rhino, but it's getting its horn filed and painted as opposed to a person getting their nails painted. We now find ourselves at the diner with Bojack and Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter. And Todd says to Bojack, we've noticed you've been really down in the dumps lately, but we think we have something that's going to cheer you up. And I think he's quite depressed at this point because he's not got the role of secretariat. And Mr. Peanut Butter continues, it's an exciting new business venture that's equal parts new and exciting. And Bojack asked what happened to their Halloween store. And Todd explains they took the floor out because Mr. Peanut Butter kept scratching up the hardwood. But they forgot to get new floors installed. Mr. Peanut Butter says, now we're all about smoothies. And Bojack says, do you mean smoothies? And Todd says, no, smoothies. It's a mood that you drink. This leads to a lot of confusion.
Makes no sense.
Yeah,
at all.
Yeah, it's this thing where Todd sort of seems to like, he thinks it's a good name. He's come up with the name first, and he hasn't got anything to follow through with that. So he sort of tries to push it a lot more. After a bit of confusion, Todd does admit they haven't worked out all the kinks, but they're going public, and they want Bojack to get in on the ground floor, which leads to Bojack being able to make a little joke about how none of their ideas have ground floors, and that's the problem. They invite Bojack to the party.
Which cuts away to a very obvious scene of someone going in and falling.
Yes,
fall into their...
Yeah, again, it's a bit like, to be fair though, if it wasn't for something a bit later, it would remind me of the cutscenes from earlier that we didn't really like too much. So after a little bit of confusion about smoothies and smoothies, Mr. Peanut Butter says, wait, which one do we make? So even he's confused at this point. And Todd says, I like to think that the smoothies make us. And Mr. Peanut Butter says, I can tell by your tone that was something smart. This is actually the phrase that completely sums up a lot of Mr. Peanut Butter's dialogue throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
So all these times where he's misunderstood a phrase, or he's thought something was a joke when it wasn't a joke, or he said something when he meant something else. He's very tonal in his understanding of what people are saying. He doesn't actually hear the words. So, and that's why Todd does so well, because he's very expressive with his tone, but he's got nonsense. There's no context.
Yeah.
There's no substance.
Yeah.
So this leads us to the smoothies party at Mr. Peanut Butter's house. But Mr. Peanut Butter says, right, we just need to be focused on this. And he would feel awful if this great idea fell apart because they got distracted by something else. Which at this point, Todd gets distracted and says, wait, did you say feel awful or falafel? And Mr. Peanut Butter says, I said feel awful, but tell me more about this falafel idea. And then they walk off and Todd says, falafel or falafel. So Bojack is sitting on the couch at this party and he sees Diane across the room. And they seem to have a bit of an awkward moment where they catch each other's eye.
Yeah, the music goes quiet. It's like that moment where I'm assuming this is the first time that he's seen her for a while.
Yes, it must
and
be.
so we do see it from Bojack's eyes, and the music goes quiet and time seems to slow down for a second.
Yes, it does.
It's that typical scene from a movie.
To break up this awkwardness, Princess Caroline actually comes in and sits down next to Bojack. And she says she's single again and she's loving it. At which point Vincent enters the party looking for Princess Caroline. And you're right, that's where the music sort of skips.
Yeah.
And I'm going to point out this line very deliberately. As Vincent comes in, Princess Caroline sees him and she starts by saying, why I have half a mind. But Vincent interrupts and says, no, let me talk. I had an attitude problem, but then I took a time out and I thought about what I did. I wanted to be a big man, but sometimes the biggest thing a man can do is tell the truth. And the truth about me is I love you.
In between that, Bojack goes, okay, here we go.
Yeah, because the way he's setting it up, particularly at the end, is like we feel like there's going to be a reveal, but there isn't. So Bojack's probably disappointed that this whole situation has been revealed as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to point out in the background of all this going on, there's a poster that they're using for the smoothies party, and it's the same poster that he used for Diane to propose to Diane.
Is it?
On the original poster, it must have said, she said yes. But now, yes is crossed out and it says, she said smoothies. So he just recycled the poster and crossed it out, which is very Mr. Peanut Butter.
Okay.
But yeah, okay, so was there a bit here where you were thinking that we were going to find out?
No.
Okay, you knew it was going to be
It's going to be a setup. The only thing that I will say here is throughout it all, I didn't think that Vincent knew what was going on. I didn't think he understood that he was in a relationship with Princess Caroline, and he was just like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'm just here, just doing adult things. And for him to come in and say, I'm in love with you, I don't know, that's a very adult thing to do, I think.
So Princess Caroline's really impressed by this display of affection. As they're leaving the party, they're all everybody's cheering. One person says, you're a better man than I could ever be. And another person says, I wish my boyfriend was that mature. And I just love how the look of frustration on Bojack's face at this point.
Yeah.
So this is where Bojack gets a call from Kelsey Jennings, the director of the Secretariat movie. And she explains that Garfield got into an accident. And this accident was going into the Halloween in January shop and falling down and breaking, I think, nearly every bone in his body by one of the scenes later, which obviously has worked out really well because Kelsey basically says the studio wanted to go young, but she was thinking someone a bit more Bojack Horseman. At this point, Bojack goes up onto the roof at Mr. Peanut Butter's house, where Diane is sat. And Bojack says, not big on parties, to which Diane replies, nah, I never know what to do with my hands, which is another reference to the first episode when they first meet. When they're introduced, Diane says, oh, I'm not really a big fan of parties. I never know what to do with my hands. So a lot of it, there's quite a few bits calling back at this point to the first episode. Bojack says he just got cast in Secretariat, and Diane congratulates him. He follows that up with, it's everything I ever wanted. And Diane calls this out and she says, you seem super jazzed, sort of sarcastically, she says that. And Bojack asks, what do I do now? And Diane explains, well, that's the problem with life, right? Either you know what you want and you don't get what you want, or you get what you want and then you don't know what you want. This is, again, the idea of the pursuit of something, or how do you be happy? Again, it's that peak, isn't it? It's that peak of happiness. You either get there and then you're not going to ever get to a peak again, or you're going to finish on the way to the peak of happiness. So
we've just
what would you rather have?
Well, we've discussed this before.
Yeah.
About dopamine.
Okay, yeah.
It's not, a lot of people believe that dopamine or life or whatever is about the pursuit of happiness, when actually dopamine is about the happiness of pursuit.
Okay.
It's the motivation molecule. It's what keeps us moving forwards.
Yeah.
And there's a thing we can observe in humans called hedonic adaptation. A lot of YouTubers talk about this, that like when you reach 1,000 subscribers, you're buzzing. And then when you reach 1 million subscribers, you're buzzing. But 5 million, it's like, meh. Okay. And they all say the same. They all say the same thing. Even though 5 million subscribers is a huge landmark.
Yeah.
As soon as you achieve your goal, your expectations are then massively blown higher and higher. It's basically the reason why people get addicted to drugs as well.
Mm. Yeah, because Bojack's response is, well, that's stupid. But I don't think he's quite saying it as in like, Diane is stupid. That's a stupid phrase that she said. I think he is saying like, well, maybe he's the nihilist as well, because he's sort of pointing out that, there's no reason for me to have purpose in anything I do then, if we're suggesting that. Diane goes on to tell Bojack that she has also accepted the job as character consultant on the same film so that they will be working together again. And she asks Bojack if that's going to be weird, the fact that they've sort of had a bit of tension when they worked together last time, and it doesn't seem like it's been fully resolved. But Bojack deflects this question of the tension of their working relationship, and he says, no, you literally wrote the book on Secretariat, like it wouldn't be weird. So he's also skirting around this tension that they've got.
Do you not think he's just trying to diffuse the situation because he's actually really happy about the fact that he's going to be spending time with Diane again?
He's not going to say, yes, I think it would be awkward because I have feelings for you and I think you have feelings
exactly.
for me. So we shouldn't work together, so they don't go off to Kazakhstan or wherever they start going off to.
Yeah.
She goes on to say, though, when she first moved to LA, she thought she was going to be doing really important work, writing stuff that makes a difference. And Bojack says, you've got time. There's always later, right? Which, again, is the second time this has been said now. So it is suggesting that there isn't going to be later, or there might not always be later. Diane says, do you remember the last time I saw you? You asked me if I thought you were a good person deep down. Bojack sort of says, yeah, vaguely. Diane says, you caught me off guard and I didn't really know what to say. So Bojack asks her again, well, do you think I'm a good person deep down? And Diane explains, that's the thing. I don't believe in deep down. I kind of think all you are is just the things that you do. And Bojack replies with, well, that's depressing. Yeah, I kind of like that Diane is also bringing up this idea of what is the self. The idea that inner self has like core values or attitudes or beliefs or ambitions that is intrinsic to that person. she's sort of suggesting doesn't exist. And it's, whereas I think a lot of us feel like it does exist, like deep down I want to go and do that hike, or deep down I want to start a business, or deep down I want to go and teach in India or help orphans. Like there's no such thing as something that's unique to you. Because if that was true, then you wouldn't be able to change it. And you would be stuck with that for the rest of your life. Whereas I think Diane's suggesting there is no such thing as deep down in a good way, because it means you can actually be something different. You can do something different. You're not stuck with something intrinsically that's you.
Okay. I didn't see that at all.
Okay.
I just saw it as her being pretty blunt with Bojack.
Okay.
I saw it as her directly speaking to Bojack.
Okay, so do you sort of feel like...
What's the line?
So Bojack's asking, do you think I'm a good person?
Yeah.
Down. And Diane says, the thing is, I don't believe in deep down. I kind of think all you are is just the things that you do. So she just thinks you're just the actions that you present to the world. And there's no such thing as math. There's just a guy that's chosen tonight to do a podcast. There's no inner being that's like, Matthew's the type of person that likes to stretch his intellect by discussing a difficult show. I
disagree. I don't agree.
Think there is a deep down. Yeah. There is such a thing as there's something that's Matthew that is not changeable. That is, you could put it on a scale of good and bad. So we could have different people, and we could say, because they hit the common. What's the common? Hitler was bad. Mm-hmm. Like deep down, he was a bad person. Mm-hmm. He was always going to be bad. There was nothing he could do to change his ways. And then you've got maybe like, let's use Martin Luther King as an intrinsically good person that was only ever going to be good.
Yes.
So they could, well, I suppose actually that would fit with my deterministic worldview, that you can't change who you're going to be. But I don't know whether that's something that's like your soul, like your being.
That was going to be my follow-up question.
Okay. Am I referring to a soul?
Yes. So this
is the deep down that Bojack's saying is my soul that.
My summarization of Diane's question is, do you believe in a soul?
Okay. And she thinks she doesn't.
It would appear so, yeah.
But you think she's wrong. You don't know.
I don't know, but I don't know. Previously, I was leaning away from the concept of having a soul, but in recent times, I'm leaning more towards the idea of us having souls.
But I'm only using the word soul because I think that does throw up different connotations as well. But I'm only using it as something like fundamental to you and unique to you. Like you can't change your soul. You can't get rid of your soul. You can't get someone else's soul.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that Diane's not giving her real answer then? In saying that I don't think I believe in deep down. Do you think is there a chance that she's just...
Well, if
This is me reading way too far into it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because she's trying to protect his feelings by saying, actually, I do think deep down you are a bad person, but I'll just say, maybe you're not deep down bad, you just do good things in the future.
No, I think counter to that.
Okay.
I think that maybe she's saying that... So she's saying that you should base it on your actions. Yeah.
She's saying she doesn't believe in deep down. You're just the things that you do.
You just think that you do.
It's just your actions. If you do good actions, you're a good person. If you do bad actions.
And in the time that they've spent together, he's done many, many bad things. And she's learned about all the other bad things that he's done.
Yeah.
But she clearly still has some kind of connection to him, some kind of feelings for him. So maybe deep down she does believe that he's good, but she has no evidence to suggest why.
Okay.
And the only thing that she's going off at the moment is the things that he does, and the things that he does are generally pretty shitty.
Bojack continues the conversation and says, for what it's worth, I think your writing does make a difference. And Diane says, thanks. Bojack finishes this conversation by saying, I really wanted you to like me, Diane. And Diane just says, I know. I think there's an interesting camera angle here as well. Camera angle, scene, drawing, background.
Speaking of camera angle.
Camera angle.
Yeah.
Because the times where we have seen them on the roof, we've seen the camera from the front, we've seen the front facing.
Yeah.
But this time, as we hear these lines, the camera's behind them and we can see them looking out over the city. And I don't know what I don't think it's supposed to represent anything, but I just think it's nice that it's been saved for this last scene. So as this episode sort of starts to come to an end now, and we get a glimpse into where all the characters are. First, we go to Princess Caroline's apartment, and she's showing Vincent her swimming outfit, and he also pulls out a swimming outfit, which is actually just a trench coat made in the same material. After Princess Caroline, we see Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter working on their falafel idea. We also see Sarah Lynn bring in Andrew Garfield a lasagna in hospital. We also see Margot Martindale, who we haven't seen for a while, and
I did enjoy this.
Yeah, just talking to everyone, getting on and being really happy because she's happy that she's I think to quote her from a past episode, she's got the role of a lifetime.
Yeah,
is what she's living now.
She's probably still in character.
Yes, yeah, probably. We also see Pinky Penguin reading the newspaper, and the headline of the newspaper is "Print media continues to be a thing." So he's happy because his job is maybe secure for a little bit longer. We also see Herb, and Herb is in bed ill still, and he's making his carer laugh. But then we come to Bojack in his house, and he's sat in the dark watching old episodes of Horsing Around again by himself. So in contrast to all those scenes that have been quite joyous and happy, this one seems at first to be quite negative. In this episode of Horsing Around, all the children have forgotten to buy him a birthday present. But he explains he's got everything he needs right here, referring to the children and having the children in his life. The episode that Bojack is watching then comes to an end, and the end credits come up, which says created by Herb Kazaz. As this is happening, the sun is starting to rise in the window behind Bojack. And this leads Bojack to go back to the observatory at Griffin Park. And he's sort of like just looking over the city, and a young horse comes up to Bojack and asks him to sign a copy of the One Trick Pony book. And the young horse says, "Thanks, man, you're like my hero." To which Bojack says, "Really?" And then leans on the wall and continues to look over the city. And that takes us to the end of the episode.
I was trying to find, when this montage stuff came up, I was trying to find some kind of meaning in it, because the episode is about later, and then the scene with Herb, and it was like, is there a later? Are all these scenes showing like the finite nature of stuff? I don't know. I don't think I'm reaching. I don't know.
The only thing I can think of is it's sort of like we've had a bit of a story about all of the characters, and this is showing us after the story. It's showing us the bit that life actually does continue.
Yeah.
Princess Caroline and Vincent are going off and going on holiday. They had a bit of a problem and a fight, and then something has happened later. They're going off and they're going on holiday. And it's sort of, I think a lot of the scenes apart from Herb's, because we know that Herb's got terminal cancer, but all the rest of the scene, apart from Herb's and Bojack's, sort of portray something is going to happen later. Like it's telling us a story that Princess Caroline and Vincent they seem like they're going to enjoy the rest of their relationship in the future. There's going to be a later. And what else? We had Margot. So she's in prison and she's happy. She's going to enjoy her time later in prison. Like she's going to enjoy that as that continues. So it's going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
The Pinky Penguin, things were really bad, but actually things are looking slightly up now and things are going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it hasn't come to an end. Print publishing hasn't come to an end. Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter are going to continue to have more wacky and zany ideas. So that's going to continue, and they will have more ideas later. I'm trying really hard to get later.
Yeah, I tried to.
I suppose maybe what I like the idea of a little bit, the phrase later has been used we sort of picked up, it's been used in a bit of a negative context up until this point. So it's almost like saying, oh, you might not have later, but actually a lot of the time there is a later. Not always, like we said, not always, like you might have a disease that ends your life like her. Do you know what it reminds me a bit of now, as I'm talking? In the Fight Club, Marley Singer, there's a bit where the narrator is saying, she has this phrase where she says something like, you could die at any point, but the ironic thing is you don't. So actually there, it's saying again that like, look, no, you might not have later, but equally, there might also be later. You can't say there might not be later without also agreeing there might be later.
Yes, yeah.
And maybe a lot of this episode was saying there isn't always later, but then now he's flipped it around and said, but sometimes there is later.
Okay.
Sometimes there's not later, sometimes there is. I think the scene with Bojack on the observatory is a little bit out of place, because I think that, no, it's not out of place, sorry, because he was so depressed about the situation, whatever situation he's in. And he's realising on the observatory, as this kid comes up to him, that he's realising that he's relevant again and he's famous again. And there was a point either a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago where he didn't think that was going to happen later. When he was looking later.
I don't think that's the message.
Okay.
I got it as looping back around to the Secretariat.
Okay.
Because the kid says, you're like my hero or something.
Yeah.
And Bojack's like, yeah, he didn't seem really impressed with that. And maybe he sees the cyclical nature of things that, Secretariat was Bojack's hero.
Yes.
And probably shouldn't have been.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
And now Bojack's seeing the same thing. A kid comes up to him and says, you're like my hero or something. And Bojack's like,
really? I shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I saw in it anyway.
Yeah. But there was an optimism about the music and I think like a bit of a pan out.
You think so?
I think the music. You think it was really depressing?
It was a depressing ending, yeah.
The music, though.
Music can be used as a juxtaposition.
Okay.
Like look at Joker, for example.
Yeah.
Joker movie, like how music's used in that to portray joy, but actually, it's more madness.
Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. I'll take that.
The
because that's what I get confused about that scene, because
we've now had a whole season of Bojack, right? And I've seen Bojack be happy or optimistic or exuberant, but the last scene he seems despondent and he's alone again.
Yes, yeah. Well, he's got his Golden Globe.
He's got his Golden Globe. But the way that it's framed, there's like a couple on either side, and then he's on his own right in the middle as the camera pans out. So yeah,
like I said, I get a bit confused about that scene. So let's round this episode off with let's do favourite visual joke. I really like the mosquito. Hang on, there's a mosquito in my tent.
Yeah.
Okay, teams up that he says it, but the idea that it's a full-size mosquito.
I did like that, but I think for me, I didn't mention it earlier, but in this episode, whenever Mr. Peanut Butter gets excited or happy, he sticks his tongue out. Not even panting, like his mouth is open, like his mouth is closed and his tongue is just sticking out.
He's excited.
Yeah, and like in the bit when Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd are doing their fake presentation to Bojack, throughout most of that scene, he's got his tongue sticking out.
Yes.
And I was watching it thinking, he doesn't normally have his tongue sticking out in scenes. And then later on, when Todd starts suggesting one of his new harebrained schemes, his tongue sticks out again.
Yeah.
So that is an indicator of when Mr. Peanut Butter is like happy or excited or something. Yeah. But this goes back to my love of dogs.
Yes. Favourite line? Have you got a favourite line?
Yeah, the Mr. Peanut Butter line.
Mr. Peanut.
About don't search for deeper meaning. Yes. Just, because I think it's very reflective of I don't, maybe not even just modern society. How it depends what we're going to class as modern society. Ever since that we've had enough leisure time to choose how to spend our leisure time, yeah, as opposed to being like you have to work to survive all the time. Ever since then, we've had this issue.
I'm going to mention two lines. I do really like that line as well, and I sort of thought you might mention it, so I'm going to mention two others. They see greatness in me, but they mistake it for goodness, I think is quite a nice line. And the other one that really sticks with me all the time is you either know what you want and you don't get what you want, or you get what you want and then you don't know what you want. And that sticks with me quite a lot.
Yeah.
Go on, give us your final thoughts and rating for the episode then.
I thought it was quite interesting. It was not as depressing as some of the episodes that we've had this season. Picked up a little bit.
Okay.
There's a lot of characters in this episode. The cast was quite wide in this episode, and I did like that. Like I said, I like the turtle guy. I like the new character,
Sebastian Sinclair.
Yeah, Vincent is just. I just accept he's part of the show now, but it's just the same joke, just over and over again, and it's a bit tired now. 6 out of 10. I was expecting more from a season finale. There were some nice lines in it and some concepts that resonate with me.
Overall, I really like this episode, actually. I don't know why I've written that after I've just gone through it, though. I feel like there's a lot of themes brought up in this episode that is supposed to sum up the season and sum up the show generally.
Okay, yeah.
After such a depressing ending in episode 11, I think it's interesting. It seemed like there was no hope for Bojack. It didn't seem like anything positive was ever going to come out of his situation. But now his book is doing well. He's won a Golden Globe. He's also now got the main role in the film that he's always wanted to make, and he's irrelevant again. He has direction, life is moving on, and he's moving on with it. Yes, I quite like the messaging in the titles that we've had a downer ending, but there will be later. There's a couple of bits in it that made me laugh. I did think the Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter bit was a bit wacky again, but again, it's used as a device to sort of move the story forward a bit, because we get this bit where Bojack isn't going to get the role that he wants to at first, but then Andrew Garfield falls into it. So it does sort of complement the main story.
I've just come to not expect much from Todd anymore.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think, the bar's a lot lower, but also it's almost like he's just the supporting character that, maybe they just help the story move along a little bit, and maybe it's just light relief.
Yeah. It needs it.
It needs it.
It needs some light relief.
That's the point.
The show needs light relief.
That's why. But yes, I think the episode raises some good questions, like Mr. Peanut Butter's question about happiness, or statement about happiness, Princess Caroline's demonstration of absurdity, and Diane's reaction to what's really deep down. Because I think I say there's so much good stuff in this episode, although it doesn't feel like a really good episode. It doesn't feel like a really good.
Do you know what? This episode feels a little aimless to me.
Yeah, that's what I sort of mean. But
there's a lot of concepts. There's a lot of characters.
Yeah.
It feels like they're just wrapping up the season and putting in some big concepts. Whereas I think all the other episodes so far, for better or worse, have had pretty tight themes in.
Okay, but maybe this is a bit.
But it says a lot that we started this podcast and I sat here and said, I'm not really sure what this episode's about.
Okay.
So either I've missed the point and it's gone over my head entirely, or it's just not as the narrative isn't as tight as it has been in previous episodes.
No, I think this is really I like it. I like the content, but it's a different type of episode, because it's telling us a bit about what the season has been about, but it's also introducing the next season.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many parts of this episode that I remember. I have to screw it well.
Okay.
Because I remember it.
So what are you scoring it?
A 9.
9! Wow.
I do think that when I've, do you know,
Wow. Have you given it 9 so far? Yeah, you have. Give it.
the last one.
Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't I wrote these notes about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't expecting to see a 9.
Wow.
But I've written it, so, and that's what I wrote. So, but I think it's because, again, just to do a final summary for me, it actually, it actually does portray the message of the show really well.
So what's the message of the show?
Later. There is later. There probably will be later. That's what I would say the message of this show.
You think that's what the message of the show is?
Probably will be later.
Okay.
After talking about it, I probably would be tempted to push it down a little bit, my whole score, but I'm going to keep the 9 because it annoys you a little bit.
It doesn't annoy me. I'm just genuinely shocked that it's a 9.
Okay, it shocks you better, is a better word. IMDb is an 8.3. In the next episode of this podcast, we're going to be doing let's call it a season wrap-up, a season evaluation, or a series evaluation on season 1. I have got some questions from other listeners that I'll ask Matthew and I'll answer as well myself. And I've got a couple of discussion points of the whole season, which me and Matthew are going to talk a little bit more about. But if you've got any questions or comments about season 1 or about us doing this podcast, put it in the comments below. Or if you don't want to see it, maybe if you don't want people to see it in the comments below, you can email the Bojack Podcast at gmail.com. The next episode will be a bit of a summary, and then we will go on to season 2. Thank you for listening.